Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today is our final day in the week of potholders for gift giving and ministry. And this is the last potholder we're going to make. If you are interested in knowing more about how to use potholders as a ministry, please refer to the first video in this series and I will link it below. But that goes into more depth. But I do want to read to you the poem that my mom, who is the one who has this ministry, she's almost 90. She'll be 90 in July. And she gives these away in pairs. And this poem is attached to them. God made you like a potholder, beautiful in every way. In a kitchen you are exquisite, hanging on display. God is happier if you are useful, helping others along the way. He sees you as more beautiful when your edges begin to fray. And that's by my mom, Millie Maxson. So I just wanted to end this week referring to that poem one more time because I think it's so beautiful and so meaningful. So, okay, let's get started with today's potholder. And I have written the instructions or what you need for those who don't speak English from other countries that have asked for this. And I'll also include them on the screen. I'm calling this a square and a square potholder. You're going to need one 8-inch square for your back. Looks like I cut that a little longer than it need be. That's okay. We're going to need a 2.5-inch strip. That's the width of your fabric. We're going to need, of color A, which is the yellow, we're going to need a 4-inch square and a 5-inch square. And of color B, which is the blue, we're going to need a 4-inch square and a 6-inch square. I starched and ironed all of my pieces before we started. I use Best Press. And I buy it in a gallon jug. It's wonderful. It's a starch alternative, whatever that means, but it's very lightweight, and but it does such a good job. It comes in various scents and unscented. I use the lavender. And we're also going to need just a little bit of this 505 temporary adhesive, unless you would rather use pins, and that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put right sides together on these two 4-inch squares, and I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4-inch seam all the way around the edge. Now that we've sewn all the way around the edge, I'm going to clip off the 4 corners, but don't cut your thread. And then on the blue side, I'm going to take my straight edge and a fabric pin, and I'm going to draw from corner to corner, both directions. Now here's what I think is the hardest part of this. We've got to cut that X, but we don't want to cut through both layers. I never have any luck peeling the two apart. What I do is I stick a seam wrapper in there, make sure I don't have it going through to the other side, and get it started just a little bit. Then I can take my scissors cut right on those lines. Now I want to peel it open. Give it a good iron. That's the beginning of our block. Then we want to take the next block and line it up. Let me see how well I cut that yellow block before I'm going to trim just a hair off of this, because the more accurate this is, the better your potholder will turn out. Okay. Now, with right sides together, I'm going to line this up best I can, and I'm going to take a 1/4 inch seam from the edge of the yellow, because we know that's perfectly straight. So I'm going to just put a couple pins in here and take it over to the machine and sew all the way around. Now that I've sewn all the way around that, I want to clip these corners again, being careful not to clip through my thread. Then once again, oh, and I forgot to tell you that the very first block you sew, when you sew these 4 together, make sure you're drawing your line on the side you want out. You want that to be on fabric B. This time it's fabric A. We're alternating. Corner to corner. Then I'm going to get it started with my seam ripper. Be very careful with your seam ripper though. If it's sharp, it can just take off. Like mine almost did there. You want to be as accurate as you can on cutting these lines, because that's going to make the difference on how square everything is when you iron it open. Now I forgot to say too, I'm using a blue thread because I'm going to quilt it with blue, because my backing is blue and I just don't like my quilting to be the, I think if it shows up too much, it competes with the pattern. Okay, let's see if we've got a 6-inch block. Not perfectly. So we're going to put, a 5-inch block. I think I will straighten this up a little bit before. To straighten it, you always want to line these points up on a line. Oh, yes, this is a 6-inch block. I'm sorry, I think I said 5 a while ago. And remember, even though I have done differently in some of my videos, shame on me, always cut away from yourself. Do not cut back like I have been known to do. Now when I cut this way, I'm going to line these V's up on a line, and then I can trim on the outside lines. The bigger your block gets, the more it can get off. If it's off a 1/16 of an inch the first time, then the next time it's an 1/8 of an inch. So that's why you want to check it at every step and make sure that you've got a perfect size block. Oh, that's pretty perfect. Okay. Now I'm gonna lay this right sides together. And the reason I went ahead and trimmed it, besides it just making life easier, is that way I know I can get it straight by lining up my points when I trim it. Now let's go sew around this one. Okay, let's remove these pins. And we always want to mark on the side that's just one piece of fabric, not on the other side that's your layering. And you want to draw from your corner of your seam to your corner of your seam. If you're off over here, ignore that. Just, it's where your seam is that matters. Okay, one more time. I'm going to try to pick up just one layer and get my hole started. Okay, we have our top done. Now I want to interject right here. All of the pot holders we've made this week, when we get to this point, when we're ready to put it together and we have our top done, those can be used like a quilt block. You could go make 60 more of these if you wanted and put them together with sashing, or just put them together without and make a lovely quilt. You could do them in different colors, or you could do them all in the same color. So just know that any quilt block, most any quilt block, can be made into a pot holder, depends on its size. And most any pot holder can be made into a quilt block. So just for future reference, now that you know how to make a bunch more quilts, bunch more blocks, you could transfer that to a quilt. Okay, I'm going to center this, and obviously I didn't cut this 8-inch square. It looks like I cut it 9 inches one direction, but that's okay because we're going to trim it down anyway. And then I'm going to center my block, and this block, I forgot to say, is going to come out about 7.5 inches. Now, most of them I've done this week have been 8-inch blocks, but a potholder can be anywhere from 7 to 8 inches. That's just the standard size. I mean, you can make them any size you want. Okay, another thing I've discovered is after using this 505 spray, if I will just iron it real good, it will smooth out any lumps. You can kind of see it's a little bit wrinkly in there, but just ironing it after I've used that spray is going to make it nice and smooth and hold it real good for quilting. Okay, now we need to trim this to probably about 7.5 inches. What I'm going to do is line up the center on this major line. You can see we've got these little points sticking out. And then I'm going to go 3 7/8. 3 3/4. Let me see. Yeah. 3 3/4. Make sure. And I'm going to trim off all the excess here. My blade's starting to get a little dull. I'm going to have to change it. Okay, turn it around again, lining up these center points, lining them up at 3 3/4 inches. I'm going to do the same in this direction. So if you're always lining it up with the center before you cut, your block should come out nice and square and centered. And there it is. Get rid of a little of these shreds here. Put them in my basket for my dog beds. If you didn't watch that video, I save all my scraps and put them in a pillowcase, threads and all. And when it gets about 2/3 full, I sew it closed. It makes a wonderful dog bed, and the shelters just love them. There was a little wrinkle down there. Still a little wrinkled. Okay, now you can bind it with your choice of binding, whether you want to do it by machine or by hand. I'm going to do the hand method, which you sew it on first by machine and then tack it on the back by hand. And I would refer you to the second video in this series to get all the details on how to do that. I don't want to continually repeat myself so that it bores people who are watching these regularly. So if you'll go back, I've done it in most all of them, I think all except number 2 and number 6. 2, 3, and 6 I did not do it in. But since these are going to go to my mom's Potholder Ministry, I want them to look as professional as possible, and that's why I'm going to hand sew the back. If it were just for me, I'd do it all by machine. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the machine and sew it all the way around, and then I'll come back and iron it to put the loop on. Now that I've got that done that far, I want to cut off all but 4 inches. We want to leave 4 inches here. And then I'm going to turn this to the front, and this is a little different than what I showed you in video 2. I think I've only done this in the last 2 or 3 videos, and that is I'm going to iron this seam allowance from the back there. Then I'm going to turn this over like we're going to do when we tack it down. Line it up here. Iron that, and I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch this, and when I get to here I'm going to bring this around and tuck it under here and just stitch to there. Then we'll turn this back and have a nice loop there, and the rest we'll do by hand. So this is a method my mom just recently showed me. I was folding it all to the inside, and I think that's a little more cumbersome. This is a little easier to do. All right, I'm gonna go sew that, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, see how we've stitched that? And then when we straighten it out and pull it back here, we have a nice little loop. Now then, I want to iron it real good, getting all these seams on the binding real good. Then I'm going to turn it to this side. Probably need to iron it a little bit more here too. In case you can't tell, I'm an ironaholic. I just think ironing makes your work look so much more professional, and I iron every step of the way. Now I'm going to take my clips and I'm going to pin this in place, drag it down all the way to a point, then fold it up, and these 2 points should meet. And when I'm sewing around, I'm going to stitch these 2 points together and give a little extra stitch right there at the intersection, all the way out. Fold it up. They should come together again. Okay, I am going to get a needle and thread and stitch this with a blind stitch, and I'll let you watch it in very fast motion. To get started, I'm going to come from the inside out to catch the edge so that my knot gets hidden on the inside. I'm going to tack this before I start. And when I get over here, I'll tack this one. And now I'm just going to blind stitch all the way around. Okay, it's all done. I'm going to seam it a little bit. Move all this aside and get my other one. There we go. There's our latest set of potholders. And while we're at it, I'm going to go through and show you all the other potholders we've made this week. We made these two for pots, big pots to set on your table. We made two in this pattern. Two in this pattern. Two in that pattern. Running out of room. Two in that pattern. And then two extra large ones. I'm going to kind of bury them down at the bottom since they're so big. And that's what a week of potholder sewing looks like. Just an hour a day and you can tackle all this many potholders. Okay, I thank you for joining me this week. I'll probably do another week of maybe bags or something here right after the first of the year. But until then, through the holidays, I'll probably go back to just my twice a week videos. There's just too much to be done this time of year. But I really appreciate all those who followed me along this journey, and I hope you make some wonderful potholders and have a wonderful potholder ministry. So remember, whatever you do, even if it's just making potholders, do it to the glory of the Lord. I'll see you next time.